Now, you're probably picturing somebody who was a leader in your life, and maybe they wounded you because they had been wounded before. And friends, this is a bit of a sobering episode, but we need to make sure that we are dealing with the stuff inside. Before we actually have to be aware of it. Let me read this phrase. Leaders need good therapists, skilled coaches, and wise mentors. But most of all, leaders need friends. We get it. You're busy. You want to grow, and we want to help. You're passionate about your craft because it deeply matters to you. Your faith is important. It's your foundation. At Stay Forth, we coach leaders to avoid burnout, live and lead with clarity, purpose, and from a place of health. We want you to experience long-term impact. Welcome to the journey.
Welcome back to Stay Forth Leadership Podcast and episode 5 in our summer series, Anti-Burnout. This one is one that my hope is that you camp out in, take some time, listen. We're tackling a pretty big topic today, and I know you have an analogy you want to share, Alan, so I want to give you some space just to kind of get us going and dive into it.
Yeah, let me preface this. This is not my favorite topic within the whole anti-burnout sort of suite of topics, but it's so crucial. It's one that we like to bypass as leaders. We somehow think we're immune to it. We somehow think we can maybe move fast past it, but this story was really helpful for me in thinking through maybe how I deal with situations and how a lot of other leaders that I coach deal with situations. I used to do a lot of rock climbing, and we have some great rock climbing here in Colorado, and I would drive over after work with some buddies. And many times when I was climbing, I was so focused on the next hold, and I was so focused on getting up to the next bolt and getting to the top of the climb. And there's this adrenaline. I mean, it is just pumping through your veins. You're trying not to fall. You're seeing the next move, and like your whole world just tightens in, and you're thinking just a few feet ahead of you this whole time. And that's a beautiful thing. It's called deep play, and it's so helpful for us as leaders to not be thinking about work at all. But one of the liabilities of it is that you literally can't really sense anything outside of that little force field. And many times I would get to the bottom of the climb and realized that I had sometimes even a gash, but like my leg was bleeding and I had no idea because I was so focused on the climb. And what I see in leaders is that unfortunately has become our life, that we are so focused on maybe the next product launch, the next client meeting, the next opportunity, the next pitch, the next fundraising season, that we may be bleeding and we have no idea that we're experiencing that. And so during this episode, we want to open you up to the possibility that there may be some untended to pain that you actually need to be able to name before you can find healing for that. We always say that awareness comes before action. And we don't just mean any action. We mean appropriate action that's actually helpful, in this case, healing. And so, leader, here's what I know. You're a human, so you carry a lot of pain. And this pain is in different areas, in different doses. And you probably can see some of the massive bits of pain, the macro pain in your life, but what about the micro pain? What about the little death by 1,000 paper cuts and then you run into the ocean and spray lime juice on it, that you just sent, I had no idea that was going to hurt that much. So how about that analogy there, Jonathan?
It's a good one. I mean, for a minute, I thought you were going with you get stung by a jellyfish and have to put pee on your leg, or
I would do that for you if you needed that.
That makes me feel really good to know that if I feel that level of pain, I'm secure. But you're right. When you were sitting there talking about ignoring, you're unaware that you're bleeding. I can remember when I felt something break inside of me and I ignored it and I was bleeding. I was just bleeding and had no idea and ignore and override. And you end up getting to a place where you don't want to be, and we don't want anyone to be there. So pain's a heavy topic, and when it's easy to run from, but it's the hardest, probably healthiest proactive step you can take to spend some time and identify the sources of it when it comes.
And in a little bit, we're going to talk about different sources of connection in your life that can actually bring healing. And as a person of faith, I just believe that God built us for community, that isolation does not work. And we're experiencing a loneliness epidemic in addition to a burnout epidemic right now. And there is an opportunity on the other side of this to move toward people, to move toward connection. And I'm sure you've experienced one of those times where you're just having a rough day. Something's going wrong, whether it's a gaping hole or just, a little bit of a rash or just something that you're like, oh, like that's not good. Like that feels uncomfortable, or that wasn't a good day, or I felt like I lost today. And then I'll have a conversation with somebody, and then I just feel whole again. I just feel normal again. They just listen. They really didn't fix anything. And that's so much of the call here with pain. Here's the reality. Unrealized pain can show back up for a leader, and then we can push that on to other people. If we do not deal with that pain as leaders, it's going to show back up in our life, and we are people of influence. So unfortunately, that's going to roll downhill on other people. That's one of the greatest liabilities of being a leader, is that many times we don't even realize the things in ourselves that are going to show up for other people. Now, you're probably picturing somebody who was a leader in your life, and maybe they wounded you because they had been wounded before. And friends, this is a bit of a sobering episode, but we need to make sure that we are dealing with the stuff inside. Before we actually have to be aware of it. Let me read this phrase. Leaders need good therapists, skilled coaches, and wise mentors, but most of all, leaders need friends. Leader, you need friends. You need places where you are not a big shot, or people that will tell you the truth, people that aren't impressed by you. I'll be around a fire pit with dear friends of mine tonight, and often just getting coffee or lunch with somebody who I don't have to serve as a leader. I'm not their coach. You're not in charge of, you're not the team lead. You don't make the decisions. You don't write their paycheck. You don't make the decisions that actually are huge for them. And I want to kind of pause on a couple areas of pain. Jonathan's talking about a huge moment of something really breaking inside of him and him realizing that. And perhaps you've experienced that. I've had a couple of those. But many of the moments of pain for me are subtle and they're hard to realize. And I feel like, oh, this is dumb. One of them was a season. I love summers, and there was so much going on in our lives, and there was so many challenges and pain and things, even down to a basement flood. And I'm, heading home and dealing with contractors and all these kind of things, that I felt like we had the summer stolen away from us. And that's a small thing. And I tend to compare it to somebody else's pain who just lost a loved one, or somebody else who, just found out they had cancer, and think, oh, that's not a big deal. And we're not comparing pain here. We're saying that was significant for me. And just to be able to name, I felt like my summer got stolen from me. And once we realize that, we say, oh, okay, now we can move towards some healthy action. So really, that's the direction we want you to think about. It may be some kind of macro pain you're thinking about that's massive. It may be something really small that's actually hard to name, but we believe that this episode could actually bring some healing and some freedom to you. So, Jonathan, lead us into the first question.
For lack of a better word, pain is pain. And just because you experience it one way, don't minimize it because someone else experiences the other way. I mean, your summer was stolen from you, and you're someone that I know that loves the outdoors, loves time with the family, and that's a quality time. And when you don't get that, it's hurtful. So as we head into our first time of reflection, I want you guys to think and be very specific. What is the most dominant source of pain in your life and leadership right now?
I hope that was really helpful for you to process, because like Jonathan said, pain is pain, and it doesn't work well when we compare our pain to somebody else's. And I just want to encourage you to not do that. One thing for me that I took a while to process was actually a staff member that wasn't able to stay on our team here at Stay Forth. And they were a dear staff member, and they just brought life and joy and buoyancy. And this staff member also became a good friend. And they had an opportunity in another state, and it was essentially a dream opportunity, and they had to go. And even though I could say that's your dream opportunity and you need to go, I still had this pain of loss to say I lost a friend and a coworker and a confidant and somebody that can really help me do our important work here at Stay Forth. And so sometimes we'll rationalize and say, well, no, it's good for them. Yes, it's good for them, and there's pain there. Both things can be true. I think that's really, really important for us to realize. And let me just remind you of something as we move toward maybe some resources, some people that can help you in your pain. Pain is part of being a human. So pain is part of being a leader. The more people you influence, the more pain you'll be exposed to. We're experiencing this today on social media, is the more connections we have, and I hover right around the 5,000 number, which is so strange that when I get new Facebook friends that I have to sort of kick some people out. It's a weird deal. I'm seeing all the pain of their life. And the reality is my heart and soul are not ready for that on a daily basis. And so I have to be very, very careful with that. But the same is true if you're in an organization where you lead 3 people or 300 people, then that's more pain you're going to be exposed to. And that's one of the natural liabilities of leadership. And there are some questions in here that I think could be super helpful for you, and just different types of loss that you may experience. And I think this can kind of guide you through that. Again, micro losses and macro losses. Maybe it's the pain of rejection. Maybe it's the pain of loss. Maybe it's something really small that actually these pages of the book are going to be able to help you name. So I had a couple people say that wasn't my favorite, but that might have been the most necessary section of the book. By the way, I'm loving the feedback. So thank you guys for telling us what was most helpful about the book. People thrive when they feel loved and languish when they don't. It's really, really important to say that study, that is a deep medical study. It's not just a good idea here in the podcast. They literally studied what happens to humans. And you've probably heard about humans who die at 85 because their spouse just passed. And their health was doing really well, and they essentially died of loneliness. And it's really important to realize that you have some resources in your life. And Jonathan and I are just going to talk through these. And the first one we just talk about is friends. Friends help you grieve and help you celebrate. I sat on the back porch with a friend the other night, my favorite place to sit in the summer, looking up at the mountains, beautiful night. And he's been through a lot. I had some things I needed to process with him. And again, we didn't fix anything in each other's life, but we listened, we laughed, and it was just so good to be together. I sent him the text afterwards, man, I needed that. And he said, me too. So that kind of thing you need in your life, and leaders, we tend to bypass that because wherever we go, we tend to be needed. Find yourself a place where you are not needed and people aren't impressed by you, but they want to be with you. Jonathan, any thoughts on friends?
I think that was a big one for me, like the importance of friends, but not to, as you say, use your friends as a dumping ground, because, I had to learn that there's things that I'm processing that I need, mentors or other people for, but I also need spaces to sit with my friends and have that community. And so managing my own expectations for my relationships and not going into expecting, one of my dear friends to fix a problem, when what I really need in that moment is just space to sit and to be, and just to kind of like almost just decompress and forget what's going on around the world for a moment and just be present in that space.
Yeah. The next one are therapists. We are a fan of good therapy. Now, just like coaches or really any field, there are bad therapists and good therapists, but there are also therapists that may be a fit for you or not. I went on a 24-month counseling journey, and it was so helpful for me, really, especially around being a dad and how my kids are all so different and how I can serve them best and things I don't understand about them. I am so glad that I went through that process, invested the time, the energy, the money, in good therapy. And I'm grateful for my therapist. I know many of you have experienced that as a gift. And what we say is if you look back and there's something that's untended to from your past that's getting in the way of your present and your future, that's when you need to seek therapy. And so I'm a huge fan of therapists that have very, very specific practices and very intentional things that they do so that they can serve and be a resource. And so if you're a therapist listening, we just want to say that coaching is not in competition with therapy. It is actually a great complement to what you do. So Jonathan, what would you say in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I see a therapist every other week and we talk on specific topics. I've been in therapy for going on 4 years now. And I've had some different ones, and the one I have now, we work on specific things that I know, like I've gotten to a place where like I know I want to work on these things, and this particular therapist is equipped specifically to handle those. And I look forward to that space every other week just to sit and say, hey, this is, what I'm feeling, this is what I'm thinking, and this is how, they have specific tools to speak in. And like you said, it's really served as a great asset to my ability to lead and serve others because it's married well with the skills that we teach in coaching. So different, but a great skill.
Yeah, man, a bunch of my coaching clients, you know who you are seeing therapists, and it's a great compliment. Again, it's like a 1-2 punch, kind of twin engines in many different ways because what we do is so different. We'll get to that with coaching here in a minute, but it can help you process major things in your life. And sometimes there's things you didn't even know you needed to process. And to have somebody that's professionally equipped to do that with letters after the name, I'm a huge fan. And so we just want to not stop there. We want to say that if you are experiencing therapy, I just want to personally invite you to share that from your own stage, whatever that is, whether that is you on a podcast, whether it's you on a physical stage, maybe you're a pastor and you're preaching, maybe you're a CEO and you're leading team meetings. Because as soon as you say that you struggle and you need help and an outside resource, then everybody else feels like they can as well. Leader, we are setting the tone for what people believe is normal. Something doesn't have to be gnarly in your life for you to be able to go and see a therapist. I've heard of people going for a couple of sessions to even name what was even something that they needed to make progress on. So whether it's for 2 months or 2 years or 10 years, we want to invite you to be able to seek therapy. We really feel like that can be a good step for so many other folks. Now, coaching. How is coaching different? What I say again is if you look back and there's something in your past that's inhibiting you from living freely and well and the good life in your present and future, you probably need to see a therapist. But a coach, we say we are mountain guides for the leadership journey at Stay Forth. We say, Jonathan, what is the mountain that you want to climb? And how do I help you understand that? And so name that like a journey or an expedition we talk about in the book, that you name that peak you want to climb, that we get the topographical maps out. That one's hard to say. And that we actually say, here's the plan, and we're going to navigate that together. I can't carry you. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to overfunction in that way. But what is the peak that you are designed to climb? What's the impact that you are designed for? What is the good life? And once you share that with somebody, you create a roadmap, or in this case, like a trail map, and walk through that. Coaching is extremely, extremely powerful. And I get to see it every day. I get to see a breakthrough, whether it's somebody else as a mom or a dad breaking through, whether it's an income goal that they didn't know how they were going to reach, a mindset area of stuckness. We could not be more passionate about coaching. We are a coaching organization here, and I get to watch people experience freedom every single week through coaching and being on the other side of an obstacle and have actually found the opportunity. Any other thoughts on coaching, Jonathan?
You're right. It's a 1-2 punch. I mean, I can remember I was in coaching years before I started seeing a therapist, and I can still feel the benefits of both and seeing like, oh, wow. And this is how now I have this tool that I can use on the leadership side because I was able to unpack and peel back the layers of here. And then coaching it's the skills, and it's the practical, action steps. And I think it's incredible. Like you said, we're mountain guides to the leadership journey. And if you're feeling stuck and you want to move forward, I highly encourage you to, again, click somewhere right around in here and explore having a breakthrough coaching session with us.
Yeah, a good coach, a couple things. They're going to help you clarify. That's such a huge word for us. Clarify where you want to go and take the steps to be able to get there. Once that awareness is there, you have to take the action step. Once the clarity is made, I can't summon the courage for you, but I am going to check in with you. And we have some other coaches at Stay Forth. It's not just me. We'd love to work with you. And what's unique about what we do is it's actually sabbatical coaching and leadership coaching. And I started calling mine culture coaching because I help executives, the leaders at the top, create healthy cultures around them. Well, we can't create a healthy culture if the culture of our life is off. If I am in disarray and chaos at home, then I'm going to bring that in. And so that's what we're so passionate about. Friends, we have so much empathy for you. You're trying to do a really hard thing if you're leading. It's hard enough to be able to live through these times with so much change, let alone to be able to process that on the fly and lead other people through that. So more on coaching here on this podcast, because that's what we do. That's ultimately who we are. Quick note to mentors. I didn't cover this much in the book, but mentors are folks who are ahead of you in the journey, and you can ask questions too. They probably won't prepare like a coach will, but I have a guy that I sit down with. It's actually not all that often, a couple times a year, and I'll ask big questions. He doesn't prepare for this time, but we sit over coffee. What about this? What about that? I've actually been able to share this mentor who's just a legend with many, many other people. And it's the Q&A. It's what would you do? Or tell me about a time when you did this. And so that may be worth pursuing for you as well. But the last one I want to mention are fellow strugglers. Fellow strugglers can help you normalize. I don't know how many times a week I say this to people. You are completely unique and completely normal at the same time. I like being in a group of people similar to me, whether they're other coaches or other podcasters, other authors, other dads, people doing similar things as me. And then I leave kind of chuckling going, I guess I'm normal. I guess we're all experiencing similar things. I know, Jonathan, you do a lot of marketing work. You do some marketing work on the side. And there's all kinds of groups online where you can get with other kind of a freaks like me club and go, oh, everybody else probably struggles to get their clients to do certain things as a marketer within that. There's just something beautiful about being in a space where you can breathe and say, I'm not a freak. I mean, like The Greatest Showman, you have like this mad group of people with all kinds of crazy gifting and wiring. They feel like freaks and they come together and they're like, these are my people. And I want to tell you, friends, you got to have that. You got to have that somewhere. And maybe this is why a mastermind group is helpful. Maybe you need to get together with other nonprofit CEOs. Maybe you need to get together with other solopreneurs to realize this is the struggle. Any thoughts on normalizing, Jonathan?
I would say this is probably one of the most important ones for me. Call back to when I said not using your friends as a dumping ground. I mean, I have a very unique vocation. We all have very unique vocations. And for me, the struggle is, I work fully remote and wherever in the world I have my laptop, and it creates a disconnect in my friend circles where there's times where like, I just need to be out of the office, out of the house, around people. And I can communicate that with other people that are like me. It's one of those things that I've worked very hard to cultivate. And to be honest with you, it's the one time I feel it the most cultivated is when we're face to face, like with other people, like in Co-Harbor and when I'm in town and doing other things. It's like, oh, these are all people that are just like me. And you can just say that one little thing and they're like, I get it. And it's the most important piece of the puzzle for me as a leader, to be able to know that I have those, fellow strugglers that I can say, hey, you know what? I'm experiencing this. And they're like, oh, I get it. And have you thought about trying that? That's been a crucial piece for me.
Yeah, it can get us unstuck in many ways. The thing I want to leave you with as we head into the last question is that all of these relationships will require investment, period. You can't get around it. Whether it's a mastermind group, I'm actually in a very expensive mastermind group that's a great investment and is doing some of all these things for me in a way. To a friendship that's just going to require energy if you want that to be an amazing, life-giving friendship. Coaching is going to cost you to work with a quality coach in your life. Therapy is going to not only cost you the money and the energy, but sometimes it's going to bring up stuff that you'd rather look the other way and not think about in your life. And so we just got to be honest here, is that all of these require investment. And if you are exhausted and burned out, you're probably saying, I actually don't have space for that. And friend, you can't not have space for this. Your life is too important. You are carrying more pain than you think. You are probably more tired than you think. You're trying to do a really hard thing. And if you're trying to stay healthy, to live and lead well for the long haul, to care for those people in your care and do good work at the same time, that may feel normal to you, but friend, that's why we are here. You're trying to do a really hard thing. And so we have tons of empathy for that, but we hope that this section of the book can be really, really practical. And even in this question, it could bring up something that could actually spur you moving toward healing, toward community, and toward relationship. So Jonathan, lead us into the last question.
Yeah, Alan, you hit the nail on the head. You said all of these relationships are necessary, but they require investment. I mean, it's kind of like four wheels to a car. Like, you have to put the air in them. You need them, but they're not going to work unless you keep the air in them and you maintain them properly, and so they're functioning the way they should. So as we leave you, I want you to think about which one of these four relationships, friends, therapist, coaching, or a community of fellow strugglers, is most needed in your life and leadership right now.
So here's the cool thing after you reflect is that you probably have an action step. And we're going to continue to bring you back to this resource that I use every single morning called the Right Side Up Journal. Friends, this is not an ad. This is me being a huge fan of this, because the reality is, as a coach, I may only see somebody every other week, but this thing is going to help them cultivate not only what they want to do professionally, but personally. There's a spot in here for people I need to reconnect with at the end of the week. There's a spot in here for how I'm going to be generous to people. There's a spot in here as I head into my week with a to-don't list, because the reality is I have to not do a lot of things each week in order to do the things that are within my care, serve the people that I am here to serve, whether those are coaching clients or my family. And so, friends, the Right Side Up Journal, we believe it's the best deal in leadership development. I know that's a big statement. We'll talk later about why, but it's on Amazon, and it's a 3-month journey toward health and impact. This is our 3rd edition. We continue to make this better. But friends, we don't just want you to win professionally. We want you to win personally. We don't just want you to become a better leader. We actually want you to become a more well-rounded, grounded human, because right now we need people who are healthy and wholehearted leading the way. Friends, that's what we hope to do. We're going to continue to cultivate that here in the podcast. We are kind of smack dab in the middle of this obstacle series. Can't wait to come back to you next week with another obstacle. And yes, there are opportunities on the other side of pain. Lead yourself toward the people around you who can help you connect and even heal in the midst of their pain. We'll catch you next week.